So you purchase a Purr 5000 and realize that it does not run on natural gas. It's a dual fuel unit, not a tri-fuel. And you're saying, well, this is disappointing. Well, good news. I'll show you how to convert it to tri-fuel. Not all that complicated, just requires a little bit of parts and so forth. Not too terrible. I gathered some parts in my shop here, and I'll show you guys how to do it. And I guess I'll see if they'll be able to run or not on my own setup. So here's the input for it. Looks like a 1/4 inch quick connect fitting on here. I'm gonna go in my shop and I'll show you how I have mine set up. I have it on the table here. So I built this hose. This hose is already purchased, this crimped. I already added the quick connect on here. This quick connect here is not a Chinese quick connect. Right? It's a UL listed quick connect, UL certified quick connect. I don't use unknown brand quick connects from Amazon or eBay. Those are prone to leak, and they're cheap for a reason. These are certified, all right, and they have nice dust plugs on them here as well. So there's a 10-foot 3/8 inside diameter line that I have, and there's going to be two fuel inputs here, so propane and natural gas, right? So I have this is not the correct size for this. I just laid this here to show you guys. So that way, when you do hook it up to your house at the meter, you would want a shutoff valve right next to the natural gas outlet here, okay? So you can choose between, you can plug it in here for natural gas, or this will tie into your propane tank, or plug it in here for propane, okay? And this plugs into this input on the input side of the demand regulator here. Okay, this is just a dust plug I have on here and so forth. Excuse me as I'm doing this one-handed. Here's a quick connect, and there's a dust plug for it. Okay, and the reason why I have to use my own regulator, get this stood up, compared to the one that's provided for you from Predator, is the fact that there are adjustments, fuel adjustments on here that you will need when you run on natural gas. Natural gas requires more fuel by volume to run on a generator. So due to the BTU content of propane and natural gas being lower, you would have to increase the volume of fuel flow to make the same 1 horsepower. So you would have to actually crank up the fuel flow on here in order to run natural gas on the generator. Over here, there is no fuel adjustments. This is locked in right here. So, yeah, I don't think I believe everything seems to be Loctite. So they put some kind of thread locker. You can tell by the red glue on here, even on this quick connect on here as well too. If I can get that camera to focus, there's you can't quite see it, but there's that glue. There you go, right there. So you can't tear apart this regulator assembly without stripping all the threads or damaging this unit here. And not only that, if your unit's under warranty and you return it, they see all this torn apart, they're not going to honor that warranty. So you'd rather just leave this alone and build your own regulator assembly to run the tri-fuel, okay? This one is just fortunately this is not proprietary, and it's just a regular 1/4 inch quick connect. And here is an example of one. You'll just go ahead and you'll be able to connect. So I've just ordered online on this end, because this is considered the input side. Excuse me, this is the output side, or the vacuum signal side. Same with this. This is at a certain length for a reason, and this is going to be at a certain length for a reason as well too. In order to lengthen this regulator assembly is to do it from here to here, right? So you would take this out and you would lengthen, you put a hose in between here to lengthen, to get the length out of this whole regulator assembly, which is I'm doing. This is the input side. So you can modify the input side, not the output side here, okay? And then not only that, I'll be building a bracket, this is a bracket for the Predator 3500 I used to hang off the front of the generator, because the regulator has to sit upright in order for it to function correctly. See, it says mount up. Okay, so if it says to do that, you will have to have it stand straight up in order to do so. Here is my custom made CNC machined 90-degree elbow. I call this a high idle adjustment. Everybody else calls it the load block. You would need that. Okay. So here's the overall kit to do so here. Now, what I like about the Predator 5000 is the fact that they did not make this connection proprietary. What I don't like is the fact that they seem to thread lock everything, so you can't modify this unit. But fortunately, they did use at least UL or SA certified specifications on their regulator unit. And I'm going to show you an example of why I say this is nice that it's not proprietary. This is a regulator assembly unit for the Champion 2500. Okay. Before we get any further, I get this a lot, all day, every day. This, even though it's called a regulator, it's a demand regulator. Okay, it's different from a pressure regulator. These are they function separately. They are different. Just because they're called regulators does not mean that they're of the same function. No, this is pressure regulator. Pressure. It's like first and last names. Pressure regulates pressure. Demand regulator. This acts like the carburetor for the engine, but it deals with vapor fuels rather than liquid fuels. All right. This is the heart of your whole setup here. Okay. For natural gas, you do not need a pressure regulator. At the meter, it's already regulated down to 1/4 of a psi, whereas this is regulated down from propane tank pressure coming in at 200 or 300 psi, coming out at 1/2 a psi. This comes out at the meter at 1/4 of a psi, it's 0.025 psi, which is equivalent to blowing out a birthday candle. Not much, okay? This is different. This is a demand regulator. Input and output. Input, pressure goes in, comes out, is regulated fuel. How does it know? How much fuel to put in the engine? Well, there's a diaphragm on the inside. Okay, see, if you split this in half, this output is on this side, the input is on this half of the regulator, and in between these two diaphragms is a needle valve. As the engine produces vacuum, meaning that there's air sucked into the intake, all right, because there's going to be a slight vacuum signal coming from here, it's going to lift up the diaphragm on the inside. As it lifts up the diaphragm, propane is going to come past the needle and into and out the output side of the regulator. Okay, and that vacuum signal lifts up and varies the diaphragm up and down. So as the engine ramps up, the diaphragm opens up, more fuel flows in. As the engine ramps back down, it closes itself, it regulates its fuel, and reduces the amount of fuel going to the engine. So it's always like this. That's what this thing does. Okay, so do not confuse the demand regulator or zero governor with the pressure regulator. I get customers all the time saying, "Hey, what's this and what's that?" You guys, you gotta really. I'm a little winded explaining this, but you guys got to really do your homework and do better research before you dig into your generator, because if you're digging into your generator, you're going to have to do a little bit of homework. All right, so moving on, about I mentioned about being it's nice that this is not proprietary, is that here's a regulator assembly from Champion, and it's proprietary, and I'll show you why. So on here, if you notice, the shape of the quick connect fitting is slightly different. This here is done purposely. So, and the reason why it's done purposely is because Champion does not want you to modify their regulator assembly to run on any other fuels other than propane. Okay, and because of it, this does not plumb into here nicely as this standard 1/4 inch unit does. Okay, You will not be able to find this type of fitting anywhere on the internet or hardware store unless you make this yourself. And this looks like this little plastic piece right here. Well, the reason why they have that is because as you connect the propane input in here, it pushes on a switch. That switch activates and lets the generator know that you'll be running on propane rather than gasoline. On the Predator 3500, we'll walk outside and I'll show you guys here. It does not have any kind of limitations to do so, which is nice. So it makes it a lot easier to run natural gas or modify the unit to run natural gas compared to that. And seems like also on this Champion, it's the same as a 4500. This is a 4650. This propane input it has that same proprietary quick connect compared to the Predator unit not having a proprietary quick connect, which makes it easier on a Predator to convert. Whereas this, it's going to be fairly difficult to do so. And not only that, the demand regulator or zero governor is located inside this unit, and they have their own design, so it makes it even more difficult to have this run on natural gas. Okay. I'll get more on this later on, but we're just focusing right now on the Predator 5000. So here's the kit laid out here. This is only 3/8 inside diameter, 10-foot. Rule of thumb: anything more than 10 feet, it requires a larger inside diameter hose. So if you want to run 25 feet, you can run 25 feet, but you will have to have a inside diameter hose of 1/2 inch. 1/2 inch, there's a huge price difference between 3/8 and 1/2 inch. 3/8 it's going to be very rare to find at your hardware store. Reason being is because it's considered commercial grade size. Right? The majority of the hoses you'll be finding in the store will be 1/4 inch or sometimes 3/8. The 1/2 inch are super high flow hoses, and the prices of that is I would say double or triple almost. Even the quick connects are double or triple. They're very expensive. But if you want to run natural gas and you want to run it at a certain length, you can do so. But the price point on those is fairly expensive. Next thing I want to do with this is a gauge. So right here, what I want to do is every time I run it on natural gas or propane, I would have to adjust for the fuel, to do fuel adjustment, because propane and natural gas flow differently. So I have it on here, a preset adjustment. Okay, have natural gas, and I'll be including another, I would be doing another, cutting out CC laser cutting another feeler gauge for natural gas. So that way I know that if I run either or fuels, the fuel settings on here is exactly the same every single time when I switch it over. So that's a nice thing. That's a nice thing I wanted to do on here. So, all right. The only thing I'm missing, and what's stopping me from doing the natural gas, would be the quick connect fitting on here. I've just ordered it online. It's not going to come until a little bit later, but once that comes in, I'll make a video and show you guys how it's all connected together. All right. Oh, almost forgot. Another reason why I want to run, or why would you want to run your own demand regulator, is the fact that it has a prime button. This does not have any prime button, nor does the regulator unit on their Champion model have anything. This prime button to me is very important. Why? Because if you run an extended hose here, this button will allow you to bleed any air from the hose. So it bypasses that valve on the inside and lets propane flow out to this end here. So what happens is that there's air in this line. You're not going to be able to start the generator on air, so you have to actually bleed the air from these lines. The longer the hose, the longer you have to depress this button to bleed out any air that's coming in. So let's say you connect it to natural gas, it's connected here. You open up the valve, natural gas comes in here, but there's air in here. It's not going to do it. It's going to sit in here unless you purge the air out of this line. So you hold this button down, you hear it hiss. Natural gas or propane start traveling in this hose. All the air will be all pushed out, and it'll be pushed out on this end until you'll have propane or natural gas come on this end. Then everything is purged. And not only that, this button's very useful. So you're just starting the generator, especially if it's on a cold day or so forth, and you want to get a little bit extra fuel into the engine to get it started a lot easier. You just push this button and you'll allow more fuel and to go into the generator and so forth. So it bypasses the regulator in here and allows more fuel. This does not have it. You sit there, if you try to modify this, you sit there and crank and crank and crank until it gets the air's all bled out from this line over here. Then it'll start. You don't want to do that. This just makes everything a lot nicer, easy starting when you have a prime button. So another thing I wanted to mention to you is about the proprietary fitting on here. I know folks will say, where'd it go? Had it here somewhere. Oh, rolled somewhere. Oh, there it is. That it's not terribly off. And folks are saying, oh, why does it make a difference? I'll tell you why it makes a difference. Okay. This is just a regular 1/4" standard quick connect. Okay, all right, great. Let's take this. Put it in here. Not quite going in there. That green ring, it's not seem to get past. But let's say this one. Goes in, but it's really loose. Seems like it'll work if you have like a standard 1/4" quick connect female going into here into their male, but it's not really secure. I wouldn't trust that. Like I said, fortunately for the Predator 5000, it's not going to be an issue. Alright guys, this wraps up the video. I'll make part 2 on how to connect everything together and test to see if it works. Alright, thanks.